Hey, Boaz here from Next Pittsburgh. We're on the south side visiting the studios of WESA. If you've ever had your radio tuned to 90.5, you're hearing voices that are coming out of this building. And to tell us what's happening in here, we've got Katie Blackley. She's a reporter, a producer, an editor. You sort of do a little bit of everything here.
I do, yes. It's a great thing about public radio. You wear a lot of hats.
Well, show us what happens in here.
Come on in. So welcome to the South Side. We are in historic Bedford Square at the Pittsburgh Community Broadcast Center, which is home to WESA, which is where I work, and WYEP, which is a music station. We've been partners for years. It's a lovely little sister station relationship.
And so when people are listening to, Morning Edition in the morning, you're hearing the parts from DC or wherever else in the world. And then when we're getting those local cut-ins, those are happening right here.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I'll show you that studio in a little bit, but why don't you come in here first?
You're going to make me work for it.
Yeah, I'm going to tease it a little bit. This is Studio A. We have, again, we're not super creative in naming them, so we have Studio A, B, and C. It is like a medium-sized studio. We're not a huge station, but we do have fairly large capacity to work with national outlets like NPR. WYEP does a lot of recordings here with bands and artists.
Who is like the most exciting musical act you've seen here?
I really liked when I saw Tegan and Sarah. That was really cool. Orville Peck has been here. Oh gosh, so many people they bring in. It's just incredible.
Gosh, that is awesome.
There's another studio in there, but I'm not going to disturb the person who's actually working today. So I can show you this room too a little bit.
It says staff only. This is an exclusive right here. Oh my gosh, this is where you're farming Bitcoin.
Yes, this is where we're farming Bitcoin. This is the heart of I will not pretend to know what actually is happening here, but it's all the technical stuff, all the fancy machines that keep us on the air and running. But this is the main studio for WESA. It looks kind of like a space station with all the different screens. But over here, this is our board. You see it's much larger than the boards in the other places. But it has the capacity to, here's mic 1. This would be this microphone. So when you're delivering the newscast, you're going to be speaking into there. But you're also working with, you could have several of these on at once.
And you said there was a button you could push so we can just hear the NPR feed from DC.
Yes. So currently it's playing 1A.
Fans of This Is Us that were like, oh, I had no idea.
I'll put my mic up here.
Had a music career before the show, so I'm flattered by that.
That's Mandy Moore.
Yes, it is. Good ear. And so it's currently on automation. So when there's no one in here during the day, it kind of goes on programming. We have everything scheduled out. So when you listen, you hear someone like Brian Sawarick, who's the voice of our underwriting in a lot of situations. He's like, today's programming is supported by the Pittsburgh Symphony. That stuff's going to be loaded into here and then played throughout the day. There's also a fun one that I really think is just goofy. It's NPR 4, which is there's NPR 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's satellites. But this one...
Universal time, 15 hours, 22 minutes, 35 seconds.
Special. It's such a...
U.S. Naval Observatory Master Clock at the tone, Eastern Daylight Time, 11.
It's just goofy, and I love it. So oftentimes you'll be reading weather off of here. You'll be recording for online use on this screen. That one, you'll read the newscast off of here. And then you can watch some local news just to make sure that we're up to date on everything in the morning and the afternoon. And it's a good view because you can see our large performance space in there where there are oftentimes concerts for WYEP. We call them live and directs. It's just a very versatile space.
And now we're heading into sort of more WYEP.
Yeah, this is more of the WYEP side. So WESA and WYEP, like I said, have a lot of shared services, but they do have their own programming every day. We have 4 hosts that mostly do daytime drive stuff, so morning through evening. Then we bring in other DJs, as Andy knows, bring in other DJs to just help out and do overnight stuff, and brings a local flair. You really get the community feel because there's so many different DJs and so many different sounds that you're hearing on this one station. So that's their studio. But this is their music library. And it's a lot of CDs, as you can see.
Gosh, this is wild to see so many CDs together.
It's somehow organized. I'm not going to pretend to know how, but I think it is by genre and then probably alphabetically. A lot of it's been digitized. That's Bob Studebaker. If you listen to any of our jazz programming or if you've listened to our station in the past, he's the one with the incredibly deep voice, but he's the nicest guy.
And so You've been doing this Good Question segment for a while, and now recently you sort of turned it into a podcast.
Yes. So the Good Question series is a listener engagement series. It's kind of based on a national model. People send in what they've always wondered about Pittsburgh, whether it's how did my street get its name? What did that used to be? Why is it still there? Why isn't it gone? Why, was it a brick? Anything. It can be anything. I have over 900 questions, which is job security for me. And we've been doing it for 5 years. And I think last summer I was like, it'd be pretty easy to just take some of these stories, clump them together, and put them in a podcast feed. We're trying to reach everybody in Pittsburgh who cares about Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh loves itself. So it's been a really delightful series to do because all the stories are just so much fun, and it's the city around you, you're learning about it. We also want to reach people who are Pittsburgh expats. So there was a big, people left when the steel industry declined, but they still love Pittsburgh and they want to learn about Pittsburgh. So we've been able to get some listeners who don't live here anymore, but still want to know what's going on.
Yeah, totally. And you were saying before, sure, there's a lot of fancy stuff at the studio, but really most of the time you're out in the field doing stuff. So do you want to take us out into the historic South Side?
Yeah, let's go. So oftentimes when you hear our morning edition host, Maria Scapoletto, do her newscast in the morning, she'll say, from the historic South Side. And one time I actually did have a Good Question asker say, well, why are you saying that? Isn't all of Pittsburgh historic?
Right.
Sure, yeah, true. It's all historic. But the South Side in particular, this is Bedford Square, and it's Riverside of East Carson Street. East Carson Street was one of the first Main Streets USA initiative business districts. They made this effort to preserve historic buildings and facades and business districts and maintain the integrity of the community. So this is one of the first Main Streets USA, which was a national initiative. And so it's a historic street. It is protected. It's very difficult to do anything with the fronts of those buildings, which is why when you look up on the South Side, you'll see a lot of really beautiful, ornate, old-timey decorations and ornamental things. And so that's always been really cool to me. So yes, all of Pittsburgh is historic, but the historic South Side, East Carson Street, and this whole kind of business district has been more designated as historic for longer. So that's why we say historic South Side.
And has anyone ever submitted a question that you just haven't been able to answer?
Oh, yeah. Somebody asked, what is the weight of Pittsburgh? And I really did dig into it. I was like, okay, I can't do the whole city. That's impossible. But maybe I'll just do the Golden Triangle. And I met with this engineer who was like, you could do this, but you have to find out, on average, how many people work in downtown, who drives, where they park. He was talking about the carbon on the building is gonna weigh something. And I was just like, I'm not going to answer this question. This is going to be way too difficult and whatever. But there's also an overturned boat on the Allegheny River. It's on the north side section. You know what I'm talking about.
Annie knows.
Yeah, and people ask about it all the time. I would love to know. I think my best route would probably be finding a boat or a ship expert to identify the type of ship it is and then go from there. But yeah, I haven't gotten to those questions because they're just it would take a lot of digging.
I love that one where there was that island you were trying to learn more about that had the power station. You're out on a canoe going to the island. That was just so cool.
It was one of the best days of working here because Chris Potter, who's our government and accountability editor, longtime Pittsburgh. I mean, if you read any politics journalism in Pittsburgh, you'll know who Chris Potter is. Really nice guy. He overhears that I'm talking to my editor and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this story on Bruno Island. And Bruno Island is an island in the Ohio River. Before Neville Island, kind of in the Manchester, Shadeland, Brighton Heights area, but in the river. And he's like, I love that island. I love that island. And I was like, cool. And he was like, do you want to go to it? And I was like, no, I mean, I don't know, whatever. And he's like, no, I have a canoe. Let's go right now. We hop in his car, go up to the South Hills, grab his canoe. And he's like, I have only ever seen Chris in the station. So watching him with this big canoe, I was like, damn. So we go down, we launch from the river, and he's doing all the work because I'm holding the microphone. But it was incredible, just going there, and we may have trespassed a little bit, but there's nothing there. It's overgrown at this point, but it used to be home to the cousin or brother of Lafayette. And so that family had something there. Meriwether Lewis stopped there because they were friends. On his launch west, he stopped on Bruno Island before he took his journey west because he launched from downtown Pittsburgh. And then it was a racetrack, and Louis Chevrolet won a race there at some point. Just a small little racetrack, when the fastest they could go was like 55 miles per hour. There are pictures, there are beautiful postcards of like a plane taking off from there. So I think they used to have some flights. But now it's a Duquesne light generating station and just like that kind of thing on the side. And then on the other side, it's just being taken over by nature, which is great. The Audubon Society identified like a ton of different birds there. So it's kind of a good Pittsburgh comeback story too. You can be all these different things, but eventually you're going to come back and like be beautiful in the environment again. But you can't get there. There's no like street, there's no road. So the people who work there have to take this giant ferry, or they have to walk across this very scary looking railroad bridge, which I've seen them do because I'll run under there on the trail sometimes and I'll see the guys just walking across this gigantic bridge to get to the island. But it was a really fun day.
And finally, I want to ask you about the Pittsburgh protractor mystery.
The Pittsburgh protractor mystery. In Pittsburgh, so you know what a protractor is, roughly.
In math and like geometry. Yeah.
So just to establish, that's what a protractor is. In Pittsburgh, there are hundreds of protractors, often different colors. Some of them have numbers, like pasted to structures. So bridges, really anything. Bridges, buildings. I think there's one on the dumpster down there. And once you know that they're around, you'll start to see them more because I can't stop seeing them. So I wanted to know, like, what's up with that? Where did they come from? I love the idea of public art. I love the idea of, like, when it kind of gets into that graffiti territory, because I think that's what makes a city really special and unique in a sense. Like, not that I want everybody to graffiti, but it shows the character when you have different quirky things like this. So I've been looking into it for a while. There was a gentleman who was mapping them for a minute, and we've talked about it, and he was like, it became too much, so I stopped looking into it. I have a friend who claims to know who it is and says I know the person too, but he won't tell me because I'm a journalist and he knows I'll do a story about it.
Oh my gosh, that's like mind-blowing. Who is it? Is it a family member, a neighbor?
I don't know. I think it's just one of his buddies. They, like to ride around the city on their bikes and stuff. So I don't know. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But yeah, it's an unsolved mystery that I will always just live with. But if you do, like, they're really cool. I like that they're around. I think there was one on the 10th Street Bridge, which is pretty close to us here, but they took it off when they repainted it and stuff. But there's many. There's many on the trails. Mostly on the trails.
Well, Katie, thanks so much for the tour, for information about protractors. The one thing we didn't see the room where you have all the mugs for pledge drives. Does that room exist?
It does. It is a full room full of swag, tote bags, mugs, stickers. I mean, anything public radio, you name it. We have Eton emergency radios in there because we sell those too. But yeah, that's a special room. But I like the entire place.
Gosh, well, thanks for having us. If you want to hear more of Katie, get the, subscribe to the Good Question podcast or just listen on WESA, right?
Yeah, so we just finished the first season. We will have a second one, but you can find it anywhere. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, all those good places.
Cool. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks.